What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations. I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2018 award winner in the innovation category given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. And amongst all the different platforms, I'm also the host and co-producer of monthly online fatherhood chats that are co-sponsored by Dad Central, Canada's national fatherhood organization, and Dove Man Care. And we are here on June 7th, and it's I'm located in Toronto. Beautiful weather. I'm looking outside here and saying I should be or could be outside in the nice weather, but we need to be here doing what we are doing right now. Unless you had your head in the sand, last week these three individuals rocked the house with an epic conversation, and there was so much demand. What's that old term? Backed by popular demand. They are back again. We're going to be having another epic conversation today. The title of our conversation is, where are we now? Where are we going? What's next for the Black community, and what action does the Black community need to do now? So unless you've had your head in the sands, it's been quite an active week worldwide in regards to racial justice, social justice. I'm not going to get into detail the backgrounds of each one of our wonderful friends, but I'm just going to introduce them one by one. And first up, Elle Jones. How we doing, Elle?
I had my mic on mute. I'm good. Thank you for having me back. I think we're all tired, but also it's great to be here in community with other Black people to have these discussions.
Fantastic. And next up, we have Warren Clarke. Warren, how we doing?
Hello, good afternoon. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us back. Really appreciate Dr. Vibe. We appreciate for hosting this platform for us to have this conversation. So thank you very much.
The pleasure is mine. And Cesar Ndema-Moussa, how are you doing, my man?
Hello, Dr. Vibe. Hello, Elle. Hello, Warren. Hello, everybody. C'est un plaisir d'être avec vous. Pleasure to be with you always.
Excellent. And just an FYI to everybody, Elle has to leave at the bottom of the hour because another bigger platform has asked her to be on, but hopefully she'll come back to the tail end of our conversation. So let's get it. Let's get after it. First things first, how have things been for you guys since we last chatted a week ago? Who wants to jump in first?
Elle, do you want to start since you have to go?
Sure. So, I mean, I think one of the things that's been happening this week for everybody is this incredible range of emotions and events, right? So there's rage, and then there's the beauty of being in the streets of Black people, the frustrations of organizing. One of the things that's happening is that white people are very friendly right now. So, you know, wherever you go, also just as random Black people or as a Black person who's in the news, they want to say hi, you know? So I was like running this morning. I was at a protest all day yesterday in the pouring rain in Truro, exhausted, you know, I'm running, I haven't even showered. And people are like, I love your work. You know, thinking just let me run, you know? So that's kind of funny. But as well, it's just been, I think, ups and downs. I've had some of my most beautiful moments of the week have been with the elders. I think talking to our elders and gaining that knowledge is a revolutionary act. I was just out this afternoon with an elder who was showing me the original boundaries of Africville and talking about, you know, where the Rockhead prison used to be, and really taking me through the site and giving, you know, 3 hours this afternoon to really immerse back into this history, you know, at the feet of this amazing elder. So you have these moments that are really the heights of consciousness building and knowledge sharing, but coupled with obviously seeing what's happening in the streets and seeing, you know, Black people whose lives are being given, whose bodies are on the line, which is serious stuff. And then, of course, us coming together, but as we're going to talk about today, just some of the questions of what is productive in this moment. I think really fighting to try and focus us not just on saying we experience racism, but really trying to use this moment to make this substantial change. You know, at a time where people are willing to talk about defunding the police, and in my city, trying to get rid of the tank the police got, and talking about redistributing resources. So it's also, you know, how do we organize our people? As Stokely talked to us about, you know, organization, not just bringing in bodies in a moment and having, you know, all these bodies in the street, but then we disperse and people have never had their consciousness raised, never had the ability to learn organizing. So it's also fighting in this moment to educate our younger generations, to learn from our elders, and to really make this something substantial and not just performative, you know, where like the police chief is showing up and kneeling and this politician is showing up and kneeling. So not having this appropriated in this moment, I think, is also the constant struggle, right? That even within a week, we've gone from this radical action to also these actions where it's like very much state-centered. And so how do we keep that energy, especially for younger organizers, but also continue to build on that? So that's, I guess, where I am in terms of mentally.
Okay. Warren, Cesar?
You want to go, Cesar? I'm going to take his. Okay, thanks. I agree. I'm going to echo a lot of what Elle mentioned. I think it's important that we don't romanticize of what's happening right now. We have to give an opportunity, especially our younger generation, to actually learn how to organize. And very much like Elle had mentioned, it's more than just showing up on the streets. It's more than singing songs. It's more than getting on stage and dancing. And it's all appreciated, but it's important that we know what our next steps are to ensure that we organize a plan of action that's going to be sustainable for our future. The one thing that stuck out to me yesterday, I was in a meeting with some elders, and I really appreciated the time and the space to actually be in that moment with those folks. Is it's funny that there's still people that didn't see the value in the protests, particularly the protests here in Ottawa, which was mentioned by one participant in that meeting. I respect everybody and their opinions. I respect that person and what they mentioned. Again, I'm going to leave that name nameless out of respect. However, this is really important that we do organize. We do come up with a plan of action together, so we show ourselves first that we're not just going in the streets. We're not just chanting. We're not just doing these things. We're actually creating reform, and we're creating reform based on knowledge and based on experience and how and what we should do next. What's most important too is not to romanticize, again, using that word, again, very much what Ella just mentioned, is seeing politicians kneeling. Like Justin Trudeau was at the protests in Ottawa, and it's great to see him kneeling. It's great to see his security guards, giving space for him to kneel. But what next? We have to continue holding these people accountable, and not only accountable, saying pointing fingers, yeah, it's your fault, but holding accountable, saying, yeah, come to the table and let's create change within our policies, within our system. And if we don't do that, then we're going to go back, revert right back to where we started. And if we do that, this would be, unfortunately, a waste, and we don't want to see that happen. So it's really, really important that we do educate ourselves. We do encourage ourselves to understand how to organize properly, so we can create change that's sustainable, not only for our lifetime, but lifetimes to come.
Cesar, go ahead, Cesar.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vibe. And first of all, I want to thank my co-panelists, Elle and Warren, for the eloquent words, because truthfully, I rejoined the sentiments. What can I say since last week? Besides for, of course, a more global mobilization and also that growing awareness that we are witnessing, is simply the fact of people basically having more of that conversation that we've been talking about must occur, but from that conversation to have the concrete actions, as Warren was saying, because I myself, I don't want to say fooled in terms of coming off maybe even insulting, but as much as I can, the human gesture of politicians and police kneeling, it means nothing without concrete actions. And if you want me to give you a perfect example, I will take the NFL chairman, Roger Goodell, in apologizing pretty much to Colin Kaepernick, who pretty much comes off in using religious language as a prophet, having put his knee down. But truthfully, we have to go beyond the sensationalism of the moment in order to build on it. Yes, we are living a historic moment. It's a global movement, never seen in so many countries, all continents. Yes, yes, yes. But let us be honest also in that conversation, how many people, including Black people, would really be out there if there was no pandemic and if there were no sports or entertainment on TV, just as well as how many will still be there when sports, entertainment, and other normal life events will reoccur. The real movement, the radicalism in terms of what we're talking about in terms of Pan-Africanism, is that the struggle never ends with momentary satisfaction, And the real struggle, the struggle of our ancestors 400 years ago in the Americas, 1400 years ago since, the Arab slave trade, and even before that in India, the Black struggle on a global sphere is a Black struggle of millennia, of centuries, of decades, and basically a day-to-day struggle for which we must never, never let ourselves fooled by right now. I know you have a question later on regarding notably non-melanated, aka white and other non-Blacks, in terms of supporting this movement, but I'm going to say this again. As much as we're going to point the finger at them, we must never forget to point the finger at us. And as such, as I delivered the speech on Friday for the Ottawa protest, I delivered the keynote closing speech. I must say this. We must dare not just to be Black of skin and to celebrate that, not to be in saying Black Lives Matter, but we must dare to be Black of mind in saying Black Lives Matter, our heroes matter, our communities matters, our families matter, and as such, to live truly, to breathe truly, and to stand up truly according to such. Dr. Vibe, you let me know if you want me to translate again as usual. I make it very short. Pour faire court, frères et sœurs, la question posée est tout simplement de savoir, depuis la semaine dernière, qu'est-ce qui a changé dans votre vie, qu'est-ce qui a avancé, et à cela, j'ai tout d'abord félicité mes co-panélistes Earl Jones ainsi que Warren Clarke dans la clarté de leurs commentaires quant au fait de c'est très bien de voir des gens avoir une sensibilisation, une mobilisation notamment mondiale, mais également au niveau de nos politiciens comme de nos policiers, comme de prendre le genou à terre. Mais il faut faire attention de ne pas tomber dans le piège de l'image et du sensationnalisme, car en fait, il est question d'action concrète, et notamment en tant qu'action concrète, on doit éventuellement se reposer la question de savoir le radicalisme qui vient avec le fait de se tenir debout en disant Black Lives Matter, les vies noires comptent, et non seulement de comprendre 400 ans d'histoire en Amérique du Nord, 1400 ans depuis l'esclavage arabo-musulman, et bien plus longtemps avec nos frères et sœurs noirs en Inde, dravidiens, mais de comprendre que le vrai combat, c'est jour par jour, et d'oser être non seulement noir de peau, mais noir dans la tête, et ainsi exactement poser la question, combien serait présent s'il n'y avait pas une pandémie, s'il n'y avait pas des sports et autres activités annulées. Et donc, on doit être conscient de cela en osant aller de l'avant et ne pas relâcher d'un seul bout.
Right, thanks very much. Cesar touched on something, and I'm getting a little bit of an echo, but let me just ask, Cesar jumped on something that I want Elle and Warren to talk about. All these companies saying, I'm sorry on this, and their apologies. What are your takes? Because I'm seeing every time I turn online, I see a different company apologizing. Elle?
Yeah, I'll take that. And that's actually one of the, again, sort of like schizophrenic feelings in this moment. So an institution which I won't name that I attended, they put out a statement on anti-Black racism. And this is an institution that wouldn't give me a degree for my work. And I had to go to another institution. So I actually emailed them and told them that. And then when she wrote me back, she spelled my name wrong. Like L is not that hard. It's 2 letters. It's in my email address. I signed it. And then she put a capital L. So I think it's often very traumatic, especially I think of someone like Yusra, who was in these streets as a very young woman, age 20, 21, and the kind of backlash she got from media across Canada. And now when she was talking about Trudeau being racist, people wrote editorials about how dare she. And now they're talking about the 21-second pause and saying, oh my gosh, Trudeau. But are those journalists going to go back and apologize to Yusra for saying that, she was so crazy, for saying that Trudeau was a white supremacist terrorist, which she was accurate about? So I think, again, in this moment, it's very difficult because at the same time as we always need people in the movement, and the movement has to grow and you need allies. It can't just be a core group of people. It has to be a mass movement. But along with that comes this feeling that a lot of the people that walked us here, and I can say that for myself as well, and I went to the police board in January. I was basically by myself. There were a few people that came, and I was talking about defunding the police then. And now months later, like white people in the city are basically circulating petitions, and the city councilors are like, oh, we were wrong. But they haven't said we were wrong because we didn't want to listen to a Black woman, and now we think it's valid because white people are saying it. They're just kind of generally apologizing. I'm like, but there was an actual human being in front of you. who paid an actual price for doing these things, as we know so many people do. So I think that's a difficult thing in this moment as something becomes trendy and popular and we're having this conversation. You know, is Desmond Cole going to get his job back at the Star though? No. You know, are they going to apologize to all the people? Like, so all of these institutions and corporations that are issuing statements aren't interested in going back and making reparation to the people they harm. And so one of the things you've seen like in this cycle this week is like an institution releases a statement and then all these Black people that work there or whatever come out and are like, but this is how anti-Black you are. And this is what you did to me. And then we have to then go back and take that individualized struggle and try and reconnect it to the collective struggle, because ultimately struggle can't just be our personal stories, right? It can't just be storytelling about when I was 5, this person called me a racist term, and when I was 7, this happened. That's very important for us understanding ourselves. But I think part of obviously movement thinking is we have to take those things. This is what this institution did to me, and then connect that outwards. So why did that happen? Who else are they doing it for? What is the purpose? What policies are still in place? Who's still on the board? Are there Black people on that board? Where does their funding come from, right? So we have to start having those structural conversations and move beyond our personal pain. But it's also very, very painful to be in this moment. And I think, you know, I can speak for myself, and I know so many others where work that, you know, you've sacrificed for and done and being called crazy for doing and lost your job for doing and all those things are now suddenly okay to talk about. But for me, and this is the last thing I'll say, for example, our institutions here are cutting part-time positions by 30%. I am a Black woman. I do radical work. I do not have a tenure position. So who is going to be cut? Me. When they cut part-time jobs, it's my job that's gone. So at the same time as the whole city's like, we need to deal with anti-Black racism and policing, the person who's talking about it is going to be out of work in 3 months. I already know that's true. So what do we do about that? And not just for me, but for all of us, because we are all precarious and we are all constantly at the mercy of that call saying, we don't want you anymore, or we heard you're a troublemaker, let's just not promote this person. You know, we are all collectively in our workplaces dealing with this as professionals, in our neighborhoods, whatever we do. So in that sense, it's how, and again, because I also like to move past the personal to organizing, we haven't even really begun to have that conversation about what worker energy looks like at this time, you know, for Black people in our unions, as collective Black workers. You know, we haven't had that discussion. We're still, because we're very early on, but I think we do need to also very much talk about our livelihoods. You know, this work we do that pays our rent, the experiences we have in that workplace, and what that looks like. Like, what does work look for Black people in a just world? And that's a conversation I'd also like to see us pick up more with our unions, with like groups of Black workers, like the Federal Black Workers Caucus, having those conversations more.
Go through the COVID crisis, the majority of people that lost their jobs look like us. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the majority of people who lost their jobs not only look like us, but are women. And we're seeing that, are they going to get their jobs back for all these apologies? Are they going to get, but we'll set that aside. Warren, I also want you to talk about the accompanying apologies that we're seeing and hearing left, right, and center.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate what you mentioned. There's one thing I want to acknowledge. Something you mentioned, something about Cesar. Your speak was really inspiring, except for when you were insulting and attacking Black people, I believe. I'm not sure Carol, what you mean. I'm not necessarily calling you out. I just want to acknowledge that, sometimes there's going to be hard truths. And I think Sophia just mentioned it as well. And Cesar's very passionate since I've met him on this panel. I know that he's, very passionate, as mentioned, very articulate, and he's coming with his truth. And we have to acknowledge that some people may be, hard to swallow some of that truth. But it's a truth that we need to start getting used to. If we're not being comfortable with these type of discussions, if we're being uncomfortable, with this type of discussions, I say that's a good thing. But learn that this uncomfortable is going to help us get to new heights, and that's the whole point of why we're doing this work. But more on the point of these apologies, it's capitalism. It's white settler colonial discourse, capitalism at its best. Don't be fooled, folks. These companies know that Black people are one of the biggest consumers of products and services. We spend our money, and we have to. They are acknowledging that, oh my gosh, when and if we go back to our norm, we don't want to ruffle his feathers and lose these consumers from buying our products and services. So this is a strategic plan to say, hey, let's apologize now, and then retain that those services and those products and services were bought by Black folks. We need to acknowledge that. Another thing, more specifically, and Sophia brought this up, saying it's a little bit too late for the NFL and places like the NBA to apologize. I agree wholeheartedly. I do. If we are acknowledging the athletes who are making the big name for themselves, like LeBron James, the Michael Jordans, they're Black men and Black women. Serena Williams, they are the one that bring in the people to watch these games and watch these big moments happen in history. So this is strategically done to say, hey, we apologize. We should have apologized for Colin Kaepernick before. Please come back and watch our sport. And we can't take that with a grain of salt. So it's not to say, hey, do away with the Lakers. Hey, I'm a huge LeBron James fan. I'm now a Lakers fan. Whatever team he goes to, that's the team I rep. That's just me. However, we have to acknowledge that this is being done strategically to ensure that the white supremacist capitalism is still in place. So money can still flow through the hands through white business owners. One thing I want to acknowledge, and Elle mentioned this, is people like myself who work in the academic space. I'm a learner in the academic space. We are at the bottom line, or the bottom of the totem pole, or the hierarchy, level in terms of tenure and establishing even an assistant professor position in these places. And the first people to be lose our position is us. With that being said, we have to be very vigilant to speak out against it. It's really important. I'll give an example. I was in a meeting this past week, with one of the universities. I'll just leave it broad that way. And talking about how to implement anti-Black racism strategies. When I was in this meeting, it was only white bodies. There was no Black folks who were leading this discussion. So it's already beginning where they're taking over our something that belongs to us to try to fix a problem, and they don't understand what it feels like to experience anti-Black racism on a day-to-day basis, where it implicates not only our social livability day-to-day, but our mental health is being impacted. They don't understand that, even though and many of them can sympathize and create this relationship of solidarity. The only way you understand is if you live in our body. So we need to acknowledge that. So I'll stop right there because I don't want to dominate.
Don't worry, we've got some time. And for those people, Elle is now gone and left our conversation. He has another engagement. Hopefully, we'll get on the tail end. Cesar, Carol Daly is still wanting to have you talk and responding, saying specifically you were criticizing Black people who believe in Jesus and Allah. That was uncalled for, as that was not the reason when a Black man, why a Black man was killed. Do you want to respond more to that?
Thank you very much, Dr. Vibe, and thank you, Sister Carol, for addressing the question. I am proud of you for asking it, and I'm going to answer it truthfully in very short term. La question étant posée que durant mon discours de clôture de la manifestation d'Ottawa, j'ai notamment de ce que notre sœur Carol Daly dit ici, que comme quoi j'ai critiqué le fait que des Noirs croient en Jésus et en Allah, et que ce n'était pas nécessaire non plus que ce soit la raison pour laquelle un homme noir a été tué. Dr. Vibe, to answer you, I will go back to what Brother Warren just said. There are some hard truths that need to be said, and we need to notably be able to address that. I'm sorry to say this, brothers and sisters, and especially those who are here right now listening live. The truth will hurt you before it sets you free. Our hero, Pan-Africanist hero, Bantu Biko, clearly said, and by the way, Bantu Biko was played by Denzel Washington if you watch the movie Cry Freedom. Bantu Biko had very well said, the most potent weapon of the oppressor is the mindset of the oppressed. Black people are the only people in the world who, in vast majority, 90+%, adhere to ideologies in which the very skin color is looked down, is diminished, is vilified, associated to evil. Black people, and now when I say this, you're thinking Christianity and Islam. When I teach on racism, I go as far back as possible and I speak academically with proofs. You're talking even in Hinduism, where you have Dravidians who are stuck in the ideology of the caste system of Hinduism since 4,000 years. At the end of the day, no matter how one tries to claim it, you cannot be saying Black Lives Matter and every Sunday you pray to white Jesus. At the end of the day, you can't say that when those cops killing you are also white Christians, and the vast majority of the white population for centuries has looked down on Black simply for being Black. The writings of the popes are there and very clear, and history is very specific in terms of how Black people became Christian. It's not Cesar saying it. It's not my opinion. It's not. It's clear and simple. As Black community, we need to have that conversation. And I'm going to tell you why we need to have that conversation. And we need to have that conversation with our pastors, our preachers, our reverends, and our priests for one very simple reason. At the end of the day, it's like the logic of power. The sons of kings never look at as equals the sons of peasants. I know it's hard for people to hear. Many people will take it as disrespect, but let me give you further examples. Black Muslims, it is proven. I was there in Egypt. The Egyptian government invited me to notably address Egyptology, but also Islam and race. At the end of the day, no matter how much a religion says, Christianity is a religion of love, Christianity only spread through violence. It's a historical fact. There was no such thing as love. It was power, knives, swords, and guns as Islam. Blacks have basically been indoctrinated with Islam for 1,400 years. And right now we have, notably in Somali communities, we have breakups that happen in families where children have to hide, children are molested simply because they want to reconnect with their African roots. At the end of the day, and I give you a very good example here. Allow me to take one of my sculpture here, where you see this, I got this in Egypt in 2015 when the Egyptian government invited me. Pharaoh Menkaure, the builder of the smallest of the 3 pyramids of Giza, where I was in with goddess Atar and his main wife. It may look to some as some type of witchcraft or sorcery, but all of these things that are inspired in terms of the Torah, the Bible, and also Islam were stolen from our people, from our ancestors. Our ancestors did not know Jesus before slavery and colonization came, and it deep down, just as they did not know about Allah and all that. You cannot claim that you are Black and proud, and yet your subconscious mind, your God, your Messiah, your prophet, your Savior is either a white man. Even when they removed the white sculptures of Jesus, notably in Black churches, let's be honest, Jet Magazine 1969, when they put a picture of Black Jesus, the people who called to complain, those were Black people. That's the level of mental enslavement. Just as for Black Muslims, you praying. They don't even speak Arabic for the vast majority, but they pray in Arabic. They look to the Arabic world. They travel over there. You have Black families who are poor. You basically have, like right now in Senegal. In Senegal, you have Black Senegalese soldiers dying in Yemen for Saudi Arabia, and yet on the other side of the border, in Mauritania, you have Blacks who are slaves since 1,400 years. It's not my opinion. These are documented facts. Documented facts that Arabs don't even lie. I have Arab sheikhs, Arab imams, and I am a former Muslim. I am a former Christian. You have Arab leaders, Arab religious leaders, and political leaders who will admit to this. So this is not a matter of attacking anyone because they believe in Jesus or they believe in Allah. Absolutely not. If you're a good person, you're a good person, no matter what you believe in. However, it becomes a problem when the same people who are saying we are not respected despite A, B, C, and D are also the same people who are saying believing and observing the religions of others. So I'm going to leave it short for now because, at the end of the panel, when you talk about some of the solutions, it is the fact that we must address our subconscious level because what you believe in greatly affect how you behave, greatly affect your associations, greatly affect how you view yourself in the mirror. It is proven in psychology that Blacks tend to have a disconnection in terms of identity and pride and potential, notably due to the fact that in the subconscious, the saviors are non-Blacks, the gods are non-Blacks. A perfect example, Dr. Rabato explaining why Blacks tend to forgive those who oppress them, slavery and religion. Pour dire ça de manière très courte, à la question que la sœur a posée, c'est tout simplement le fait que, en aucun cas, je ne suis là pour insulter quiconque de noir parce que la personne croit en Jésus ou en Allah. Toutefois, il faut exposer le fait que les noirs sont les seules personnes qui, tout en se disant « je suis victime car je suis noir », dans leur subconscient, se mettent à croire et à espérer en un Dieu, un sauveur, un Messie, un prophète, qui est soit Jésus blanc ou bien arabe Allah, alors qu'on ne voit pas cela d'aucun autre peuple. Et cela est notamment prouvé quand on voit pourquoi les Noirs tendent à pardonner ceux qui leur font mal. Et c'est notamment le lien, tel qu'a démontré le professeur Beto, le lien du pardon, de l'esclavage et de la religion qui était endoctrinée dans les Noirs, quand on voit notamment au niveau des arabo-musulmans que les Noirs, depuis 1400 ans, comme les Noirs chrétiens depuis 400 ans, ce n'est que par l'esclavage et la colonisation que les Noirs sont chrétiens musulmans, tout comme depuis 4000 ans, ce n'est que par l'invasion et les conquêtes que les Noirs dravidiens sont pris dans un système de caste en Inde où ils sont infériorisés en raison de leur couleur de peau.
Excellent. And as always, I'd like to thank everyone who's watching the conversation live, either on Facebook or on YouTube. Please put in your comments, questions, etc. BIA Media is monitoring the chat rooms on both those platforms and making me aware. And I've got questions for our panelists at the end of our here, which they're going to answer. One question for you. Should Blacks be looking to white/non-melanated people as their allies? And if so, what should that alliance look like?
Thanks for the question. There's a few questions that came through the live chat that I want to acknowledge. Robin Brown, I see your question. Yeah. I will acknowledge it. So, but to answer your question dead on, I think we need to be critical of how we define allies, and we have to be critical of how we create relationships of solidarity. If I can't be vulnerable with anybody in this world, I don't care what their ethnicity is, I don't care what their race is. If I can't be vulnerable with you in terms of sharing something that I can trust you to keep to yourself and not judge me, then I can't create a relationship of solidarity with you. I don't care who you are. And I think that's what we have to acknowledge with creating relationships of solidarity with non-melanated people. You know, for too long, we share our vulnerability and our vulnerability gets exploited. For too long, we share, our knowledge exchange with non-melanated people, and it's taken for granted, or our ideas are stolen and then transformed into theirs. So we have to be very, very critical in terms of how we approach relationship solidarity. It is time. The only thing I want to acknowledge based on just what we mentioned is we need to educate ourselves. We need to. We cannot be going through this turn of events emotional. Emotional will only carry us so far. We need to take the opportunity to read, to seek knowledge in different forms. Be a part of these panels. Reach out to Dr. Vibe. Reach out to Cesar. Reach out to me. Reach out to Elle. We need to take that opportunity, because the more experience we can gain and more knowledge we can gain through those moments, we can now understand what white supremacy will do, okay? And what white supremacy will take over from our lives or take from us. So it's not to say we cannot create relational solidarity with non-melanated people, but we need to be strategic in understanding how we could, create those relational solidarity with non-melanated people. There's one thing I will connect my talk with what Robin Brown had mentioned. He asked, what things should Black folks demand of the federal and provincial governments now that will be hard to undo later? And it goes somewhat hand in hand, so bear with me, folks. We need to ensure that we can sit at the table with these folks, not only once, not only twice. We need to be sitting with these folks continuously. There need to be representatives, equal amount of us in comparison to their numbers at each meeting of each meeting. There can't be, okay, you know what, we're going to have this, Black caucus meeting, and we're going to invite, a few Black folks from the community once a year or twice a year. That doesn't work, because what happens behind the scenes, it's going to change a narrative. They're going to create different policies. And then all of a sudden, we end up at square one. So that's the first step. We need to ensure there's equal representation at these tables, in these offices, in these meetings. We need to, when we see Black folks going, that potentially could be our next MP or our next mayor, we need to vote for them. We need to get them in these spaces. If we don't, it's going to continue that white settler ideology over and over again, right? And that's why it's important to educate yourself, understand the social discourse that currently is dominated by white supremacy. If we don't understand it, then you can't fight something you don't understand. It's like fighting a fire with fire. That doesn't work. You're not going to put out the fire. We need to equip ourselves with the water that's going to put out the fire. If we don't do that, the fire is going to rise. It's going to rise. There's also something that Robin had mentioned as well. Sorry, Robin. It's not. Sorry, people. It's not that because I am being favoritism here, but that was a good question. He asked, should Black folks should be with Windows? Sorry, that's not the one. There was another question. Sorry, maybe I missed it. Okay. So I'm gonna just stop there because I can't find the other question. There's a lot of comments that came through the comment box here. So please, it's again just to recap and just to conclude. It's really important to understand that putting yourself in a position of vulnerability, not vulnerability sharing your deepest, darkest secrets, but in a position to say, hey, I want to be vulnerable with you to ensure we can create a relationship of solidarity. And we need to stop playing checkers. We need to start playing chess, people. There's a lot of checkers players out there that are trying to fight this fight, and we're losing every step of the way because we don't understand the social discourse. So again, educating yourself, understanding and getting a holistic understanding of who is non-melanated and could be create that relationship of solidarity I spoke of, and also continuing to empower yourselves, but ensure that we are at the table every step of the way.
Excellent. Cesar, should Blacks look to white/non-melanated people as their allies? And if so, what does that ally look like? Or what does that alliance look like?
Dr. Vibe, la question est, est-ce que les Noirs devraient voir les personnes de non-mélanine, donc les Blancs et autres non-Noirs, en tant qu'alliés, et de quoi cela aurait l'air? Dr. Vibe, to tell you the truth, I'm absolutely not against allyship. I support it, but when I say so, the devil is in the details, to speak religiously, because, and I'm going to explain this very well, in this world of white supremacy and with too many Black people having racial identity complexes, too often Black movements, Black ideas, Black innovations tend to be co-opted, recuperated by non-Blacks and notably whites. You have to be careful here in terms of saying this very loud and clear. The validity of what we are standing up now goes back beyond George Floyd, beyond Trayvon Martin, beyond Rodney King. It goes beyond even the 50s. We are talking of a continuous movement, slavery, colonization. And when we are talking today, having allies coming in, they can be leading the talk for us. They can be leading the walk for us. They can be next to us, as in the case of Dr. Martin Luther King. But we must always be careful of making sure that are these allies really there to learn and to assist, or are they there because it feels good, because it's the movement of the hour, because they want to feel like they're part of something historical going on? And as I addressed in my speech on Friday, since people refer to it, when we are there having allies, I take, for example, Arab allies, okay, address the Palestinian people. Free Palestine, sure, no problem. But are Palestinians willing to address anti-Black racism in Palestine? Because it exists. When we're having people in Japan saying Black Lives Matter, Japanese people, are they willing to address the racism that they create against mixed children, mixed people who are half Black and half Japanese, notably, and notably against Blacks? Are they willing to have that conversation as well? Because it's not just about Black Lives Matter because of police brutality in the Western world. Yeah, it's great to always look in terms of America and say, oh, the American police, they're so mean, they're so bad. Look at how they treat Black people. This game of geopolitics and sensitivities must have a real logic and real conversations. I welcome allies of all backgrounds. I will welcome Russian allies, but there's racism in Russia. Are they just pointing the finger at USA, or they're also looking at their own country? So we have to have these conversations, and in that conversation, in terms of leadership, in terms of who drives the movement, we must be understanding of the fact that you are an ally, you use your white privilege to advance the Black cause, because the fact of your white privilege is what leads us to have this conversation. Allow me to give you a perfect example when we talk about ally. When we talk about ally, we must never forget the notion of leadership and accountability. And such, when we have people protesting and, yes, riots and looting can occur, when it's white people rioting, are the questions of leadership and accountability being addressed? Especially when we see now with this American administration, a complete failure of leadership. And as such, when we look in terms of the very movement for which we are walking on the street, for the reason why we have this show, we must recognize something. The ally of today, were you talking yesterday? Kind of like the NFL apologizing 4 years later. What were you doing then? So now if you're having a change of heart, that also means you still have to do a lot more work to do before truly I can embrace you as an ally. And can I really say that you really have my back? Or at the end of the day, sooner or later, Black people will see themselves be disappointed, be deceived by the same people who will say that they're alive, but they're going to co-opt the movement and benefit of it. Très brièvement français, à la question posée, je disais que oui, j'embrasse le fait qu'il y ait des alliés, mais à se dire alliés, est-ce que eux-mêmes dans leur propre pays, j'ai donné l'exemple ici de Palestiniens, dire vive la Palestine libre, oui, mais les Palestiniens, est-ce qu'ils parlent du racisme en Palestine? Parce que ça existe. Les Japonais qui disent Black Lives Matter, est-ce qu'ils parlent du racisme envers les enfants métis et notamment les Noirs au Japon? Il faut qu'ils en parlent aussi. Donc oui, au fait d'avoir des alliés, mais à ces alliés qui viennent dans la cause, non seulement le leadership et le mouvement doit toujours être centré sur les Noirs, et à se dire alliés, où étaient-ils hier lorsque les problèmes étaient là, mais ils étaient silencieux? Alors maintenant qu'ils sont là, il faut s'assurer que ces alliés sachent bien où est leur place, qui est d'utiliser leur privilège blanc pour faire avancer la cause noire.
Excellent stuff going on, folks. And again, if you're whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, if you're doing it live, certainly put comments in, questions you have for our panelists. BIA Media is monitoring the chat rooms and bringing us the information. One was trying to find the other question from Robin Brown. This was his question. What do both of you think about Black folks starting cooperatives? Warren?
I think it's important. I think it's highly important. The issue I have with that is that we're not we're trying to be entrepreneurs, but not educating ourselves. That is my biggest issue. I see it time and time again where great ideas manifest. It gets off the ground, but because a lot of us don't understand certain concepts, don't understand certain things that would help keep intact this business that we've created, they fall apart. It happens time and time again. Or what happens is that we've got to a point and we mismanage money. We mismanage the services. We exploit our community. So there's so many different facets that happen when we're not taking the time to educate ourselves to understand how to do this properly. And it's not the fact that we can't do it properly. We can. But we just need to know how to do it properly. The one thing that I have a pet peeve of is how we approach education. A lot of us don't see the value in education, and I don't know if it's something that we're afraid of doing, or something that because it's continuous understanding of you can't go to college, you can't go to university, which does have an impact on how we think. However, there's too many of us that don't see the value in it, even if we understand there is value in it, and we need to take an opportunity to educate ourselves. I know I've been saying that too from the beginning when I talk today, but one thing I've noticed as an educator in the academic space is that there's a lot of white folks that travel through the academic space, and I kid you not. If you read some of their work, and it's not to say they're stupid or anything, but if you read some of their work that they hand in to me at least, and you're just like, well, how did you get here? Like, what is encouraging you to be here? And one thing that's encouraging is their parents. Their parents are pushing them through education, pushing them to university, pushing them to college, but more so university, because university gives a different status in life, where there's a lot of Black folks don't achieve that university degree, and they're not achieving that status because having a university degree versus a college diploma it brings you on a different level. And it's not to say going to college is the worst thing for you as an individual, as a Black individual, but we need to be educating. We need to be encouraging our Black youth going to school. We need to encouraging not only school, but going to university. Yes, I'm biased. I've been having these talks in the community every time I had the opportunity. And anytime someone brings to my attention that, hey, you can be an entrepreneur, you don't have to go to school. No. We need to stop that. We need to stop that right now. Because when we go into the rooms, even if we go into the rooms and have those conversations with those people who are in power, they will be speaking English, but they're not speaking the language you understand. And it's because they're educated. They'll be using words that you think is going to empower you or make you seem like you're getting closer to the table and adding value, but you're not. Because you don't understand what they're saying, you don't understand the language that they're using, because they're using of the language of the university. The one thing we have to acknowledge too, and a lot of people aren't aware of this, policy is created in the university. I'll say it again: policy is created in the university. Now, people may be thinking, "Well, hey, Warren, no. You go to the the open discussions in the federal government, and that's where policy is made." No, people. Where those people were educated was in the university. Where do you think they got their knowledge from? Where do you think they get their ideology from? The university is funded and always will be by the government, because they know, white supremacy knows, that the only way to understand this language is to go to university. And if you don't go there, how would you even add value to the table when we get there? Just because you make it to these circles, or you make it to these rooms, doesn't mean that you've made it. You're making change. There's certain sentence structures, certain words that could be used that can swindle our opinions and make us feel like we're not even adding value in the first place because we don't understand what's going on. And it happens time and time again. We need to be more forthcoming about who's representing us and who's going into those meetings. We need to be informed by certain individuals that are particularly in the auto community. For instance, the Black Caucus Hub. I'm sorry if I said that wrong, but the Black Caucus Hub with Richard Sharp and Robert Brown. There's some smart individuals that people don't know they exist. We need to know who those people are. If we're not getting to know who those people are, we're doing ourselves a disservice. And we're doing ourselves a disservice if we do not see the value in education. If we don't see the value in education, we won't get anywhere. Just like in the words of Bob Marley, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. The only way to emancipate yourself from mental slavery is to educate yourself, people. I'm very passionate about this. I'm not apologetic for it. I don't care. All right? It's important that we educate ourselves. It's important that we understand different ways of social discourse that can impact our lives. And that's why at the beginning of the conversation, we can't just rely on emotion and the protests. We need to ensure that we understand organization. If we don't understand that word and that concept and what it can do for us, it's a done deal. We're going back to square one.
Warren, excellent stuff. Really received your passion on that. I'm sure everyone who was listening, watching this live on the replay got it. I'm just going to read a few comments before I ask Cesar to add on to what you just shared. Robin Brown saying, "Word, Brother Warren, we had the second meeting of our Black Hub Freedom School today. Only 6 people showed up. But when we have calls with politicians, lots of people show up and ask easy questions."
Do you mind if I say something right there? Do you mind?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Yeah. Robin, I feel it for you, brother. And for those who are like-minded, this is a problem. We don't want to put the work in, right? The mind is a muscle, people. The mind is a muscle. If you don't train it, you cannot you can't use it to be better. Just like when you work out. People say, I want to go lose 20 pounds. If you don't eat right and if you don't work out, you're not going to lose 20 pounds. It's not going to happen, right? It's important that we understand we have to train our mind the same way. If there's a call for you to learn something, for instance, there's a lot of people who are watching this platform today. This is an opportunity to learn. This is an opportunity to learn from Dr. Vibe, Cesar, L. Jones, reading the chat message. This is an opportunity. We need to show up to these spaces to educate ourselves. If we're not doing it, you're wasting your time. And when you do go to these meetings and you ask those simple questions, we look like fools. We look like we don't know what we're talking about. And that's what upsets me about our community. We need to be focused. We need to ensure that we understand what courting means. We don't know what that means holistically, generally. We don't know what it means to say, hey, you know what? We need to ensure we have the right woman and right man to create a foundation. We don't do that properly. And it's not to say we suck. It's not to say we are terrible people. We need to call out our own inconsistencies too and create those opportunities into strengths. If we are not doing that, then we're going back in the same circle, same ideology, which is going to be destructive for our future. And if we don't understand that, to ensure that we're going to have a stable future, we need to ensure that we're educated. It's simple. We need to train our mind, people. We need to. And I can't stress it enough.
Excellent. Warren, fantastic. Cesar, I guess it's morphed into two conversation pieces. First of all, the question from Robin Brown asking about what do you think about Black folk starting cooperatives? And then adding on to what Warren has been passionate about over the last few moments, the importance for Blacks to educate themselves.
Thank you for the question, Dr. Vibe. En gros, la question, frères et sœurs, c'est en fait deux questions. La première étant, que pensez-vous du fait que les Noirs créent des corporations? Et la deuxième est par rapport à l'importance de l'éducation. Dr. Vibe, I agree with what Warren said. I'm not going to disagree with that. I myself have had the honor of delivering lectures in universities, notably urbanism, geopolitics, and racism at Carleton University. But as well, I am an educator conferencier in high schools and as well a leadership trainer in the education field. However, having said that, we have to be careful. We have to be careful because, again, I agree with Brother Warren, but we have to be careful. And I'm going to tell you why. Absolutely, we need to have Blacks creating corporation, but not everybody can, will go, nor will succeed in university. There is a problem when in a city, capital Ottawa, as Ottawa, I had, pipe issues and I couldn't find a Black plumber. I had to rely on a Canadian or Polish, etc. plumber. We need to have Black people also in trades. We need to not only encourage entrepreneurship and businesses, but we need to stop the stigma of the person who only knows how to use their hands, whether they be mechanic, whether they be plumber, whether they be roofers. We need to encourage that for our Black people in terms of saying, no, not everybody can be an entertainer or an athlete, but at the same time, not everybody can be a university-educated, academic, and eloquent speaker per se, but you are still very valuable in terms of what you can bring to the table. It is for us in terms of then, those who know certain fields, such as the university education and the political language, to be there to guide our people. But for that, we must be accountable to them and for our people to look at us. And I always said it. I said it on Friday in my speech. I always say it, to not just be Black of skin, but Black of mind. The importance of that is that too often we have those who speak well, but they speak well in order to enter white spaces. They don't speak well in order to really represent the brother and sister who are struggling, who are not in the closed circles and closed meetings, but they speak well, and their education is mainly to impress whites in order to enter white spaces. Kind of like in hip-hop, everybody wants to get out of the hood, but how many reinvest back in the hood to make the hood a better place to live in? We must have that conversation. So regarding the importance of education, absolutely, I agree. I will not disagree on that. But we have to also understand this. The notion of education is linked to power. As I said in the last show, the Western model of education is based on the Prussian model, which is pretty much to create soldiers and factory workers for men in terms of conforming individuals in not only following orders, but perpetuating the status quo of the system where the rich and powerful keep getting richer and more powerful. We need to encourage education, absolutely, but in that education, we need to encourage an education that is centered for Black people on their identity. And as such, when we do such a thing, as I see in high school, I see Black youth will have identity complexes. They can have good grades. They can speak the right words. But because the identity is so undervalued to diminished, they have identity complexes when come to real questions. You saw a perfect example of that when I addressed religion, and regarding some of the comments, I don't take it at heart to be insulted at all, because I studied this and I'm being insulted by people who don't know the topic. But what I'm saying is that we basically have Black people who can have an education, but because they lack a true Black identity at the core, they become hyper emotive, or they become desperate to enter white, Arab, Jewish, Asian spaces to feel a sense of validation. That becomes a problem. Education by itself, no matter the piece of paper that you have hanging on your wall, or no matter the fancy words that you can produce as in French, means nothing if at the end of the day, you are denying your identity and you are not standing up in terms of using that education, just as using that trade, when we talk in terms of corporation, to uplift your people. This is where Pan-Africanism comes to be about. Pour dire ceci très brièvement en français, alors, aux deux questions, d'abord par rapport aux corporations, je suis d'accord avec le frère Warren qu'il faut encourager nos frères et sœurs, notamment à avoir une éducation au-delà du lycée, tel dans le cadre universitaire, et de comprendre ce genre de langage, notamment par rapport aux politiques. Mais attention, nous ne devons pas tomber dans ce piège de la suprématie blanche, de regarder de haut ceux qui ne savent qu'utiliser leurs mains. J'ai donné mon propre exemple. Il n'est pas normal qu'à Ottawa, capitale du Canada, je n'arrive pas à trouver de plombier noir. Et donc, je dois donner mon argent à un plombier blanc ou qu'importe d'une autre origine, alors qu'on pourra avoir des jeunes à qui on fait comprendre, non, tu n'es pas obligé d'être un divertisseur ni d'être un sportif, mais en même temps, tu ne peux pas nécessairement être un académicien, un universitaire, mais tu peux utiliser tes mains, tu peux apprendre un métier, que ce soit autant mécanicien, que ce soit plombier, quoi que ce soit, mais avec ce que tu peux faire, tu contribues à la communauté, et ainsi on sait qu'on a une ressource supplémentaire dans la communauté. Et au niveau d'éducation, qu'est-ce que j'ai dit? C'est très simple, c'est que l'éducation, bien sûr, c'est important. Moi-même, avoir déjà délivré des cours à l'université tels urbanisme, géopolitique et racisme à l'université Carleton, mais également en tant qu'éducateur conférencier dans les lycées ici et formateur de cadres supérieurs dans les lycées. Qu'est-ce qui arrive? C'est que l'éducation fait partie du langage et du pouvoir. Et en ce sens, ce n'est pas suffisant d'avoir des Noirs qui sont bien éduqués ou qui ont atteint des hautes positions, ce genre de choses. Mais il faut avoir des Noirs qui ont une éducation, un langage qui est ancré dans leur sens de l'identité pour être redevables à leur communauté noire. Parce que sinon, qu'est-ce qu'on finit par avoir? On finit par avoir des Noirs bien éduqués, mais pompeux et désespérés d'entrer dans des sphères blanches, juives, arabes, etc., d'autres communautés. Pourquoi? Parce qu'en fait, ils ont honte de leur communauté. C'est comme l'expression dans le hip-hop, où tout le monde veut sortir du ghetto, mais combien veulent réinvestir dans le ghetto pour faire monter la communauté? C'est dans ce sens que corporations comme éducation doivent être censées être centrées par rapport à l'identité pour qu'on se tienne debout et que tous et toutes puissent être des contribuables par rapport au collectif. C'est ça le panafricanisme.
Thank you very much, Cesar. Just going to go back into the chat room. Got some comments going on here. And Elle is back. Yay!
Welcome back, Elle.
Hi.
Good.
How are you? About that?
We snatched you back. So I'm going to catch up with a bit of the conversation. Warren and Cesar have been quite passionate about the importance of Blacks educating themselves. The importance of Blacks educating themselves. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, we all went through colonial school systems. I mean, my mother literally went through the colonial school system, like the British colonial school system in Trinidad under colonization. And then those of us, obviously I'm younger than that, but we know that our school system, we never learned our own history. I didn't have a single Black teacher. No, that's not true. My biology teacher in high school was Black. And then I didn't have another one until my PhD. So, you know, we don't see that. And then what's being taught, so in Nova Scotia, they do have African Nova Scotian studies, but less than 1%, and 1% of the teachers are Black. So a lot of the students are like, we take this course, and then all they teach us is that we were slaves. And they don't teach them about slave rebellions. They don't teach them that in Nova Scotia, they're the descendants of escaped liberated slaves who won their freedom. They don't teach them about the history of the Maroons. They don't teach them about any of this history. So they just sort of feel like we sat there and then white people came and saved us. That's in a lot of cases what they're learning, or a very kind of neoliberal history of great firsts that doesn't really have anything to do with teaching them themselves. So a lot of the work that we've all had to do is educating ourselves. I frequently say that, you know, for Black people, some of our greatest minds, our genius for hundreds of years has been dedicated to this question of how do we liberate ourselves? What do we do to free ourselves from colonialism, from these racist systems? And we have Fanon, we have Cabral, we have Angela Davis, we have Asada, we have ancestor after ancestor that's given us this knowledge and that's there for us, not as something that's dry in the library, you know, not just something that we're like, oh, that's nice for school. It's not for school, or you should only read it in university if you get a chance. I read this work with people in prison, for example. The men in prison do reading circles on Angela Davis, Our Prison's Obsolete. And then they come to understand this circumstance and are able to connect the oppression they're experiencing and starting to have conversations, for example, about prison abolition. The men in prison have read Fanon. So they have the ability to read this difficult material. It's not just, you know, this sort of theoretical thing that's out there only for academics. But we have to, I think we very much have to understand that, you know, our education doesn't start and end in classrooms. We have to go out beyond our classrooms for our people that may not have had literacy because they weren't able to go to school. They were given a SIN number when they were 12 and told to get out of school. But they have the ability to learn that they're not stupid. We know our people are brilliant. And just because we either don't have or don't want to be part of formal education does not mean we do not have capacity. So it's very, very important. Those of us who are within these traditional systems need to also go out and share that knowledge and make sure that other people have access to it. And then we should also be advocating for the resources in our communities to do that work. However people want that done, whether that's free access to tuition for university or whether that's resourcing our own schools, our own way of learning. But, you know, knowledge is the weapon of the oppressed. We know that. You know, on very basic levels, if you've ever, for example, worked on a habeas form with a man who's in prison, who has every knowledge about what's happening to him, but hasn't been given the skills in school because he's been pushed out from the time he was 7 or 8 to, you know, spell close confinement. We know that our people, just on those kind of levels, to read the forms, to be able to do their legal work, to know what's happening, it is a liberatory act. And then beyond that, our need to increase our consciousness. So I don't believe in education as a bourgeois construction, like you're only somebody if you have this title and you're a better person if you have this level of education. That's not how I believe in education. I believe in education for all people. All people have the ability to be educated. All people have different skills in learning. Not everybody's book learned, but they have hands knowledge, or they are emotionally literate, or they know how to organize, or they understand people. And we as Black people need to embrace all of that knowledge and bring that in, because that is what's going to build us.
Excellent. If I have Warren and Cesar's permission, I'd like Elle to also talk about what does she feel about Black people forming cooperatives.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Is that for me?
Yes. Well, I wanted to get the other gentleman's permission just to get you up to speed, so when we move forward, you didn't miss out on anything.
So Black workers co-ops?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I'm very, very interested in that I was studying when I went to Jamaica was how people there organize their communities and land. Because of course they have the Rastafari movement, which is a deep decolonial movement that's based in these concepts, not only of land and farming and food security, but then also how they create justice through doing that work together. What the philosophies are. And, you know, I'm not saying they're perfect communities. You know, as a woman, I wouldn't necessarily, some of the, you know, patriarchy within those communities can be challenging. But it's very, very interesting to see these land-based movements and seeing how people are working for themselves. So I'm very interested in this relationship to land. In a province like Nova Scotia, we have land here, much of it stripped by the government, Africville and so forth, land title in North Preston where they're attacking that. But we have the ability to produce for ourselves, and within that then create our own work, sustain our own communities, you know, do our own farming, have our own stores. And when you look at these decolonial movements, that's what it's based in. So I think there are models around the world. Somebody said to me, you know, the revolution, now we're seeing the streets in the US, but before that, somebody had said the revolution isn't coming from North America, it's coming from the global South. And we saw, you know, Chile and Haiti, and, you know, those were up in arms in like November, October. They were in revolution before this, and we just didn't pay attention because it wasn't the US and it wasn't on our media. But there's a global uprising taking place in the South, and people are talking about these land back movements, talking about funding our own schools, talking about managing our justice system. And I think that's exactly where this conversation needs to go. Obviously, we're not going to just tomorrow go out and do it. But I think, as Angela tells us, we keep shooting for the thing we actually want. We don't just settle for small systemic change. We don't just say, okay, can the government put a grocery store in our community? We need to talk about how can our community use our land that is ours and farm it and produce on it and build schools on it, as our people did. Because if you look at the founding of the Black communities in Nova Scotia, somewhere like Africville was a revolutionary free community. It was a community not funded by government. Black people paid for that land. Black people put up businesses. Black people ran that community. So we have models, and we can return to them as well and continue to grow.
Okay, excellent. Robin, I know you have another question. I'm going to parking lot that for a second. I was happy with Elle coming back because I want all three of you to talk about the defunding of policing. And I don't know if anyone's been paying attention to the news today, but Mayor Bill de Blasio in New York says they're going to be putting something to effect immediately about taking funding away for the police force and put it in for programming. So I'm glad Elle is back because I'd like to get each one of your thoughts on the defunding of police services. So I'm going to let Elle go first on this one.
I just got off cross country. Those are all the questions. And what do we do? And Chief Saunders says that we can. And I'm like, doesn't Chief Saunders advocate for his own budget? Like, doesn't he have a self-interest? Like, why? He plays me Chief Saunders, and he's like, well, he says we can't do it now. I'm like, yeah, but he advocates for a bigger budget. Like, what the hell? And then he's talking about Bill Blair. And I'm like, did Bill Blair not violate everybody's civil rights during G20? You know, so they're just not ready for this kind of thing. But
Warren's all over you. He's loving your content.
I love it.
I love it. Time because
I love it.
Bill Blair, I think, gets him killing prisoners through COVID. And of course, his racial profiling regime. I only got to G20, and then, you know, they strategically interrupt you, so you can't say much more. But the point is, of all of this, is policing does not work. So if somebody identifies as a conservative, they should really be asking themselves, you know, is $6,000 to keep somebody in a provincial jail a month like worthy use of our resources? Like, does that work? And then that person gets back out with no treatment or housing, and they're right back in a month later. Like, is that useful? You know, it can cost $200,000 to $300,000 to keep a woman in federal prison, like not for a violent crime, like for having a mental illness or disability. Like, how is that useful? So these are just practical questions. I think it's radical at this point to believe in police budgets exploding. I think that's a radical act. This is not based in reality. And I think what's based in reality is that crime prevention works through housing people, giving them treatment, making sure that they have mental health resources, resourcing that instead of police to show up on these wellness checks where they kill people when they're called. None of this makes sense. It's just not, it's like being a flat earther. You know, this thing hasn't worked yet, but if we just pour more resources into it, maybe it will work. And it's like, it's not working on this scale, but you think you're going to scale it up and it's going to work. So to me, it's a practical question. Every time you talk about it, like just on CBC, it's treated like, you know, the craziest thing a person could say, but it's actually crazy to believe in mass incarceration. I think that's the ridiculous, impractical, and expensive solution that actually does not work.
Who wants to go next, Warren or Cesar, in regards to defunding police?
Oh, thank you. I totally agree with Elle. I don't even want to add too much value there because I don't want to take away from what she mentioned. I think she's dead on. You know, we've seen time and time again, there's budget given to the police, and then we see time and time again unfortunate or disgusting circumstances that happen on Black bodies. So it's not working. Giving money, it doesn't work. It's saying like, you know, hey, you know what? We know it doesn't work, but we're going to give you more money just because. That does, like, what sense does that make? You know, defunding the police, again, Elle said it best. I'm stuttering a little because I don't know where to add value because she said it so well, so eloquently. So thank you, Elle. So I'm just going to stop and say I agree 100%. I don't want to take away from that because there's nothing for me to add there. But, you know, we just got to be very vigilant and understanding why we're saying defund the police. We're not saying in a radical way to say, hey, F the police like NWA, but yeah, maybe somewhat. But needless to say, it is an opportunity for us to actually think critically about why we're saying this, why we side with defunding the police. So I'm going to stop right there because thank you, Elle, for saying that.
Cesar.
Thank you very much. That's an excellent question. And brother and sister, I wanted to go last. First of all, in French, en français, la question est de savoir que pensons-nous du fait de réduire les financements de la police. So I wanted to go last because I actually happen to be an equity expert on the Community Equity Council of the City of Ottawa Police. And as such, I'm going to say Sister L. Jones spoke very well, but I'm going to add to it. So defunding the police per se is not enough. Please bear with me where I'm going to go here. Police is an institution that will not recognize having systemic racism. We've had meetings Tuesday and Wednesday, and I don't get me wrong, I'm not here putting Ottawa Police Chief Slowly to the question here, because I understand in his position, and notably as first Black man, Chief of Police of Ottawa, he at least had the courage to recognize that every individual can have biases and all organizations have institutional racism. So it was well articulated in his position at this moment. But you have to understand that police is an institution of systemic racism, which is directly linked to all other institutions. And as such, when we speak of defunding the police, we notably have to have the uncomfortable conversation, not for us who are not in the police, but for those in the police, to address notably the power of police unions. The power of police unions, to understand where I'm going to go, I invite you to go back to the 50s and 60s with the truckers unions called the Teamsters, and seeing how there's a relationship of police union in bed with politics and also in bed with courts, which notably contributes to legally make it that much hard to be able to sue or take to accountability a cop, notably a white cop, mistreating blacks. So when we say defunding the police, we must be not only be able to have that conversation regarding police unions, but defunding the police. Some will say police chiefs have too much of a high salary, but I go further than that, notably talking in terms of defunding the police to address what? People will say trainings. I'm sorry to tell you this, the issue is not so well that police does not do proper training, because remember, in cases of police brutality, it is overwhelmingly white cops who are brutalizing non-white citizens, and to the extent of killing them, as we know the names: George Floyd as Sandra Bland, Trayvon Martin as Rodney King, and Breonna Taylor. We don't see this from Black cops towards white citizens and notably white women. So we must ask the question, why? It's beyond a matter of training. It is a matter of defunding the police in terms of the notions of priorities and the culture within white supremacy. The perfect example happened actually in Buffalo this week, where the two cops will push the elderly person, had the support of the rest of the colleagues who prefer to quit the force instead of standing in the side of justice, and despite video recording. This is the importance of defunding the police, because I am sorry to say this, and to any chief, Slowly, Saunders in Toronto, Arredondo in Minneapolis, you have failed your citizens. You have failed your citizens in the notions of to protect and serve, where you are unable or unwilling to be able to condemn your very own in terms of leadership and accountability. And as such, the defunding of police must come in understanding, as you so well put it, Dr. Vibe, defunding the police to reinvest it into social services and stop falling into the narrative of fear, control, and order, such as elitist white men, as Donald Trump liked to put. And I remind everybody, we have entire generations of Black men in prison. Sometimes you have father and son in prison due to the privatization of police, the privatization of justice, and who becomes the number one victims of such systems? Black bodies. When you look at Black bodies, you're talking here in the USA, yes, but you look at Canada, you look at Brazil, you look at UK, you look at France, time and again, the minorities are those who are overly represented in the incarceration system, and you see a direct link bit of incarceration and justice court with the police and the way it's structured, the way it works, and its links to politics. En français, j'ai dit qu'il faut aller au-delà de la question du financement de la police et oser adresser celle de notamment les unions de police qui sont trop puissante. J'ai donné le parallèle avec, dans les années 50 et 60, l'union des conducteurs de camions qu'on appelle Teamsters et montrer comment les unions de police sont dans le même lit qu'avec les politiques et les systèmes de cours de justice, notamment dans le fait de la survalorisation des notions d'ordre et des notions de peur pour contrôler les discours narratifs afin de justifier une surreprésentation des corps noirs qui finissent dans les prisons et dans une médiatisation trop souvent négative. Et ainsi, on voit que ce soit aux États-Unis, mais également au Canada, comme en France, Brésil et États-Unis, il y a une surreprésentation des personnes noires dans le système carcéral et cela vient notamment d'une trop grande puissance accordée à la police, comme quoi, en fait, ce n'est qu'une institution de racisme systémique qui refuse de se l'avouer, mais une institution de racisme systémique bel et bien qui fait partie de toute cette société de pouvoir et de contrôle qui abuse effectivement les personnes non blanches de manière disproportionnée.
Excellent. Folks, these three are fire. They are fire, and they just get better. Every syllable they pull out, they just get better and better. We're going to start winding it down, but I'm just going to read some quick comments that are in the chat room. Clyde Love says, yes, know about your identity is really important. You can be educated, but not know your identity. Sophia from Ottawa says, yes, education is important for me. I don't have a university degree. I had my son early in life, and I had to bust my behind to climb where I am now, and I'm nowhere near done learning and still climbing. Dio again, I believe he's from France, saying, I believe that police should invest in training law enforcement people. If they already do, they need better trainers or better performance tracking and background checks. Robin says, my Cisco, I can't get that word out. Schizophrenic. I got it. Too many words today. Older brother is alive today because his workers from the Canadian Mental Health Association come when he's in crisis, not the Metro Toronto Police. Sophia says we should look at taking dollars from that organization and put it into another community supports and public health. Robin, you keep on getting questions in. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get your first question was, okay, I'll take the one I can see first here. Who can provide non-lethal, compassionate response to folks experiencing mental health crises? Anyone want to take that one on?
I'm not the expert on this, but Professor Idil Abdullahi did a full plan. So she has really been a leader in really understanding mental health care for Black people specifically. So I couldn't answer the question, but I would say look up Idil Abdullahi's work around, as she would say, mad Black people and how those structures can work from a community level. So yeah, I'll just shout out her work rather than answering it. Go check it out. She's saying, but one of the things, of course, is of course police shouldn't be on those calls. Of course, we can have community trained people from our background that know how to de-escalate, that have health training. That is of course possible. Like we have social workers, we have doctors, we have psychiatrists, we have mothers in our community that know how to nurture. You don't have to be trained in, whatever white people consider mental health. We know how we've been also taking care of mental health people, and we know how difficult that has been to talk about it, and exactly why it's difficult for Black people who get to a crisis point because we don't have Black psychiatrists and Black counselors, and even if we do, we can't afford them because we don't have health plans because we don't have permanent jobs. So really, I think again, building those community structures of what mental health would look like, not just at the crisis moment, before we get to that point. We should be able to call people in our communities and say, my daughter's having this problem, and where are the people that can come and help her and intervene and know where to put her and have the resources, which means not sending people to these psychiatric facilities that criminalize people and don't let them out. We need better options for that, but it's a very, very challenging issue, as we know in our own families and communities. But we know that solution is not, because I guess this is what I'm rambling towards the point of saying that it doesn't help if we say, well, don't call the police, but then some white social worker comes in as if white social workers haven't taken our babies off our breasts and, aren't criminalizing Black women in particular around motherhood. So it's not like we just don't want some white official in our home who's like gonna then do whatever, and on the way out tell us we don't have healthy food in our cupboards, and just doesn't like our babies crawling on the floor. So it has to be people from our own community. We also have to remember, as Robin Maynard's book tells us, that social workers have also been a form of policing. So we can't simply invest in switching to another white authoritarian structure that also kills us.
I actually want to just chime in. I agree. And this is not a disagreement to Elle's point. It's really important that we don't take what she's saying with a grain of salt. But I do believe that there are white folks that can help. I just want to acknowledge that too. I'm going to be vulnerable with folks on this call. I myself have dealt with mental health issues where if I didn't have certain people in my corner and some of them were white, I wouldn't be sitting here. So it's important that we acknowledge that it's not only Black folks, because sometimes Black folks can take you down too. It's a reality, folks. I don't want to sit here on this panel. I think I'll be doing people a disservice and injustice to say, yeah, trust any Black folk who's a social worker. I'd be lying to you. I think, like I mentioned earlier, we have to understand our vulnerabilities, and we have to understand when and who we can share those vulnerabilities with. As I mentioned earlier, we need to stop playing checkers. We need to start playing a little more chess. But we need to learn how to play these games, figuratively and literally. So please don't take away from the fact that there are white folks that can help. But be very, very, very mindful. I will encourage people on this discussion who's listening. Be very mindful of your vulnerabilities. It's really important. Understand who you can share with and who you can't share with. Don't just let anybody in your home or in your personal your life try to dictate or try to heal, because they can be tearing you down. So I just want to acknowledge that.
If I can
go ahead.
Add very quickly. Thank you very much, Ellen Warren. La question posée par rapport à la santé mentale dans la communauté noire, et incluant le fait de savoir si juste entre noirs on peut y trouver une réponse. What I can tell you from the start is that I address notably mental health when I present on general. I have a conference regarding general discriminations in society. Racism and sexism, Islamophobia and xenophobia, but as well mental health. And I'm going to say the first layer of mental health is your direct environment. Your direct environment can either be toxic, or in your direct environment, you can find the resources such as friends and family who can help you. But of course, just because someone is called family member does not mean they're going to be there to help you. And I'm going to add to that the fact that here in Ottawa, in the University of Ottawa, there is Professor Jude-Marie Sénat, who does an amazing work with his team in addressing mental health in the Black community. And one of the things that he notably talks about is the family environment, and how too often in the Black community, mental health is linked to religion in terms of witchcraft and, you being possessed, things like that. But that we need to be able to not only support professionals, but also be able to address our relationship with those around us. Regarding having non-Blacks for help regarding mental health, absolutely, I don't disagree with that. Whoever can help you in a situation of need is a helper. The skin color is not what should be first priority. However, we also have to recognize that there can be some direct reasons why we want to make sure that we have more Blacks who are trained and educated regarding mental health due to the particularities of Blackness, notably in terms of immigration, culture, but also having to deal with the constant oppression and the mental charge of white supremacy and of the constant bombardment. I give you a perfect example of mental health that maybe many people don't realize. In Black communities, it is not so much the fact that another Black person has been killed by a white cop that becomes the issue of mental health. It becomes the fact that there's no justice that's given. And as such, this has consequences, notably on Black mothers who are pregnant, where in the very pregnancy, the mental health can impact on the well-being of the baby to be born, just as it has an impact of the injustice towards Black school children, but as well adults will have to continuously be told that yes, you can do it if you work harder and harder, but they keep being subjected to the injustice. Frères et sœurs, pour dire de manière très brève et très simple, j'ai dit que par rapport à la santé mentale, absolument, ce n'est pas le fait de la couleur de peau de quelqu'un qui vous aide qui doit être le plus important. Si quelqu'un est là pour vous aider, c'est bien, mais attention, il faut encourager qu'il y ait plus de professionnels et de personnes noires éduquées en santé mentale, car il y a des particularités, notamment culturelles, telles de l'immigration, et notamment de vivre dans un bombardement constant de suprématie blanche qui fait que notamment les corps et les personnes noires doivent perpétuellement se justifier et de survivre. Exemple concret, ce n'est pas tant le fait qu'une personne noire soit tuée par un policier blanc qui affecte la santé mentale, mais c'est l'injustice de voir un policier ne pas être condamné, et donc cela est prouvé avoir un impact sur la santé mentale, notamment de femmes enceintes par rapport à l'enfant qu'elles portent, mais également des enfants noirs dans le milieu scolaire, tout comme d'adultes noirs, perpétuellement se faisant rappeler ça. Et j'ai notamment donné l'exemple du professeur Jude-Marie Sénat de l'Université d'Ottawa qui fait un excellent travail où notamment il dénonce le fait que trop souvent dans la communauté noire, les problèmes de santé mentale sont reliés à la religion comme quoi sorcellerie ou possession alors que les gens ne savent pas en parler. Et personnellement, j'ai dit que non seulement des gens de famille peuvent vous aider, mais il ne faut pas tomber dans le piège que juste parce que quelqu'un est famille ou ami, cela veut dire qu'elle sait quoi dire ou bien elle peut vous aider. Et moi, notamment, je donne dans mes conférences sur les discriminations générales en société, donc racisme, sexisme, islamophobie, xénophobie, mais également santé mentale. J'adresse la santé mentale dans le cadre de l'importance de comprendre ces enjeux, tels même juste l'anxiété. C'est un enjeu de santé mentale.
Thank you, all of you again, as we're going to start winding it down. Now, I'm going to read some comments, and I'm going to wrap about 2 or 3 questions into a final question. And some of the questions we're getting here, comments we're getting on the side. Robin says, thanks, Elle. I'll check out Adil's work. Floydine Charles Friedel, who runs Catholic and Social Services in Toronto, has given 2 names out of the Toronto area that help with mental health. One is Donna Thomas, SAP, acronym SAPACCY, Mental Health Support for Black Youth. Also, a gentleman named Keith Cunningham. I know Keith Cunningham. He has a private practice. He's a specialist in collective trauma. So, last conversation piece. We've had 2 questions here. I'm going to roll it into one general question. First is Robin asking, what opportunities does the current crisis present for Black folks to make specific demands in the field of education, employment, business, and health? And then there was a comment from Can saying maybe too many of the movements work in silos and don't cooperate. What kind of cooperation needs to happen across the diversity within the Black community? So I'm going to roll those 2 questions and saying, what are the action steps moving forward? What would you like to give everyone listening to this live or on replay? What are the marching steps you would like to give members of the Black community? Because the protests are going to go on, but there needs to be more than protests. Who will go at it first?
I guess I'll go ahead.
Yeah.
You're ready to speak.
Oh, me. Oh, okay. I think we did mention this in the beginning of the talk. We need, and actually Elle mentioned this, I'm going to echo a little bit what she mentioned, is we need to understand what organization means. We need to understand that if we're going out there haphazardly just to march and sing and dance, which is great, but if we're just doing that and not understanding how to organize and be strategic to ensure that policies are going to change for better outcomes, to sustain and get rid anti-Black racism, then we're doing this for no good reason. We need to understand. We need to educate ourselves. I've been saying that. I think I've been beating that in people's heads all day, and I'll continue to beat that drum, people. We need to give ourselves an opportunity to seek knowledge, not necessarily formal education. Sophia, I appreciate you. Thanks for being vulnerable, and keep learning. It doesn't matter. Even right now, at the stage of where I'm at in my academic path, I'm going to be a lifetime learner. It doesn't matter how many degrees I have. Those degrees mean nothing as long as I can do something with it. That's how I see it. If we are, for folks who are on this panel, and I think we all can agree, we're giving this education to you. This is knowledge we're giving to you. We're not saying, I can only speak for myself. I don't know everything, and I will never pretend like I know everything. You know, my whole purpose is, you know, if I know it, I'm going to share it. If I can share it and I can empower, then that's good for you, not good for me. I take no credit in doing that. We need to seek knowledge in different forms, have conversations, reach out to people. If you're sitting in silence, that's not necessarily a bad thing. You can still learn your own way. There's different books and literature you can read. There's different films you can watch. There's so many things you can do to empower yourself to understand what we can do next for ourselves. And the more you know, the better. That's not my quote. That came from Reading Rainbow. But needless to say, just continue to be engaged, continue to be lifelong learners. So that's what I intend to do, and that's what I'll encourage people to do. Thank you.
All right, Cesar. Unmute yourself, my friend. Okay.
Basically, the question is, what do we do from here? And how can I put it? What we do from here and how it can benefit us. I think this global movement must also be an opportunity for not just pointing the fingers in terms of systemic racism, white supremacy, organizational culture, and talking of transformational changes in institutions and the notions of power and redistribution of wealth. Absolutely, we must talk about that. But we must also, in terms of ourselves as Blacks, be able to look at what I call the three cancers of the Black psyche. And by this, the first one notably being in terms of the overvaluing of entertainment in our communities. Brother Warren is absolutely right regarding the importance of education. But as I was saying earlier, education for education just create Blacks will have nice pieces of papers, but will have no sense of identity. But at the same time, as I was saying in that speech on Friday, I asked the brothers and sisters who were there, the thousands of them, why do they call themselves, excuse my language, nigger, by the N-word, bitches, hoes, such type of language that is being perpetrated under white supremacy to further put us down, to devaluate ourselves. And under entertainment, we must question those. I saw, I believe it was a tweet by, what's his name, Justin Bieber. We must question those who delve into Black culture, benefit from it, enrich themselves, but are they standing and walking next to us regarding Black issues? So that's the first cancer of the Black psyche. The second one, which I addressed in my speech regarding the overvaluing of Nikes and Jordans, but also, and yes, some people will see this as controversial, fake hair in the Black community. But it's not fake hair per se. It's where are we putting our priorities, whether it be the Nike Air Jordans or weaves and fake hair. Where are we putting our priorities? And by such, where are we putting our dollar? Are we, there is a study that says the Black community is a community in which a dollar comes in and stays the shortest, maybe 1 or 2 hands before it exits the community. And as such, when we had the conversation regarding corporations, this is an example of how, notably by supporting trade in the Black community, we can make sure that dollar stays in. By supporting Black entrepreneurs, we can make sure the dollar stays in. When I think about notably a store, an African art store as Rafetna here in Ottawa, business owner Marem Tam needed the support of the community and notably of Black community leaders to support her, to stand by her side as an entrepreneur as she was being of racial injustice and malpractices in businesses. Where was the community? Where were the Black leaders? Because by such, in terms of addressing our priorities, we can create strong socio-economical communities. I want to remind everyone, in every capital city of the Western world, there's a Chinatown. In every capital city of the Western world, there's a Black community. But we don't have our own centers. We don't have our own institutions. And as such, it becomes a matter of addressing, as Brother Warren was saying, capitalism, yes, in pointing fingers at whites and those of the dominant group, but also towards ourselves in terms of, are we contributing to ourselves? And finally, the last cancer of the Black psyche that I talk about, and yes, some people have addressed it, was the matter of It's not so much religion, but spirituality. The spirituality in terms of our consciousness, the spirituality in terms of knowledge of our roots, the spirituality in terms of, like I was saying, to what extent can you say, I'm Black and proud, or Black Lives Matter, and yet on Sunday we are kneeling and praying to white Jesus as a savior, or on Friday in the mosque to Arab Allah and speaking in Arabic, when we know very well there's no white person with a African name, just as there's no Arabic person with an African name, or will praise to any African system of faith or spirituality. So we must reconquer our identity. We must take advantage of this moment. Just as in the 70s, they were saying, I'm Black and proud, calling themselves brother and sister. We must have the courage of these uncomfortable conversations in the Black community and address the hyper emotivity of too many who want to stay trendy, who want to follow the dominant / mainstream culture, but who don't see that we as Black people are central to it. We are too often the creators, but we are not the ones benefiting. Très rapidement en français, j'ai juste parlé des 3 cancers du psyché noir, notamment par le divertissement, où trop souvent nous sommes là à proférer des insultes envers nous-mêmes, peut-être de s'appeler nègre et autres insultes, notamment misogynes, et pourtant on doit reconquérir ce genre d'identité et notamment questionner ceux non-noirs qui viennent dans la sphère noire, en bénéficient et s'enrichissent. Où sont-ils pour marcher à nos côtés? Et ainsi encourager l'éducation des nôtres, mais une éducation qui notamment a un volet identitaire pour savoir que nous avons des gens qui contribuent à notre avancement. Et par rapport au consumérisme, le deuxième cancer du psyché noir, c'est de réinvestir cet argent noir, car trop souvent dans la communauté noire, $1 ou €1 sort trop rapidement hors de cette communauté. Et quand il sort de cette communauté, cela nous appauvrit. J'ai donné l'exemple du fait que dans toutes les capitales européennes, il y a un Chinatown, il y a une communauté chinoise forte. Or, dans toutes les capitales occidentales, il y a également une communauté noire. Mais trop souvent, nous n'avons pas nos propres centres, nous n'avons pas nos propres institutions. Et en ce sens, une faiblesse socio-économique est un handicap dans un monde capitaliste. Le troisième et dernier cancer du psyché noir que j'ai adressé, c'est celui non tant de la religion, mais de la spiritualité, dans le sens de connaître son identité, de savoir d'où l'on vient. Pourquoi? Parce qu'on ne peut pas dire « je suis noir et fier », tout comme les vies des noirs comptent, et pourtant nous sommes là les dimanches, agenouillés, à supplier et pardonner et à prier pour un Dieu blanc, Jésus, ou bien les vendredis à la mosquée pour un Dieu arabe, Allah, et parlant arabe, alors qu'on sait très bien qu'il n'y a pas de blancs chrétiens qui ont des identités ou des noms africains comme d'arabes qui prient à des systèmes identitaires, des systèmes de foi africains. Donc, la vraie solution revient vers non seulement pointer le doigt vers la suprématie blanche et les institutions, la culture organisationnelle, la notion de transformation en leadership, mais également de se revoir nous-mêmes et oser adresser le fait que nous devons reconquérir notre noirceur. Nous ne devons pas être juste noirs de peau, mais également être noirs d'esprit. Thank you.
No problem. L. Jones, you're going to close it out for us.
Well, I think everything's mostly being said. I know for myself, it's a real challenge. When we have young organizers coming up, I think it's very, very, very important that we encourage them. I remember how significant it was for me that Rocky Jones, directly sought me out and taught me and encouraged me. I remember when I was doing poems at Black History Month, and I would be like talking about abolishing the police, and everybody would be just looking at me, and I mean Black people looking at me just like, why is this happening? We're embarrassed, and Rocky would be in the back with a fist up, and I just felt so good. So now I try to do that to people coming, behind me and new people. But at the same time, I think, and this is to the silo question, we have to do that education, right? I'm always a student of Torrey Stokely Carmichael on organizing, just, a genius on organizing. And he talks a lot about how, our mobilizations risk this idea that we just need these bodies in the space. So Black elite of activism or organizing, summons the bodies. When the bodies no longer needed, they go home. But true organizing is about giving the people the capacity in whatever way to organize, and then take that knowledge away into their own apartment buildings for like tenancy board, into their own schools, for parents to organize with their kids. We need to build that. And I'm very, very lucky that I came up in a province at a time where I got to live at the same time as Rocky and learn that. So this whole thing of silos is also about ego. It's also very much about how and I say that for myself too, it's hard, right? Like, you want to be on the interview, you want to be, you want to get your due in that sense, but we have to be careful that we understand that those platforms aren't about us, they're about our community. And that can be hard, because we're also experiencing in ourselves, like marginalization, our voices being silenced. So when we finally get the chance to go, we're like, no, this is my time. And it's hard to then sometimes share that, and I think some of us have experienced that from older Black people who have, put us down in particular ways. And that's trauma. I don't blame Black people. I always remember where it's coming from. But, we have lived out so much trauma without being able to heal it. And it plays out in our intergenerational relationships as well. And, we have older people that look at youth and are like, why are they wilding in this way? And why do they want to dance in the streets? And why do they want to do this? And a lot of this kind of generational respectability politics. And I think it's very, very, very important for us to support the young and the 18-year-olds and how they want to express themselves. But we also have to offer them that education that's so important. And then not be about ego, not be about, who gets on the news, understand the roles in organizing, that sometimes the background role is really important. Understanding that, a protest isn't just like things don't show up. People book things and, plan them. And it's that planning that's important. That's the work that brings us together. So I think there's a lot to learn there. It's very much deeply impacted by the kinds of traumas we've experienced in our interpersonal relationships. There's a big discussion raging in Nova Scotia right now about skin shade, and people are having these issues out. As a lighter skinned person, I fully support the idea of light skin privilege. It's true. There's a reason. You can't deny that. And we have to be willing to work those things out and be honest about them with each other. But that can be difficult, especially when we're under crisis. So that's why we need to organize through other times as well, but not enable a kind of celebrity class of organizing. I see that as someone who's probably in that class, right? We really need to make sure that it's shared, it's collective, it's not just, and the media, this is the point I was going to make, is it's the media that appoints our leaders, right? We have our own leaders, community to community, everybody knows who's a leader, and then when the media comes along, they say this is the voice, this is the person, and acts like we all have the same voice in the same issue in the same community, when in fact, as we know, Black people, there's as many opinions as there are Black people. There's conservative Black people, there's liberal Black people, there's radical Black people. We're from all different countries and continents and cultures and races and mixes and backgrounds. So I think that's really important. As far as where we're going, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of like catch me on the day. Some days I feel so, I have such a strong belief in where we're going. Something happens, I deal with a guy in prison or something, and we've won some liberation battle. I always say that the happiest moment in my life, I have never felt such deep joy as when Abdul Abdi, who we had organized for to stop his deportation, when I saw him in freedom and gave him a big hug on the street, I have never felt such joy. And so I always try to hold on to that. We can win. In that case, we won, and we won against the state, and we won when people told us you can't stop a deportation. It wasn't one person. It was all of Black Canada that rose up in that case on Twitter, in actions, all over the place. Black Canada said, no, this is anti-Blackness. This young man is not leaving this country. And we stopped it. So I really try to hold on to that we can do that. But of course, there's days when I feel so sad and despairing and just frustrated at other Black people. Like, why are you doing this? And we have to work through those things. But I just try to remember we have won. When we fight together, we can win. To go back to Kaepernick, if every single starting quarterback, and that's not even Black people, because the quarterback's mostly white, if they all said, we're not playing till he's back, they would have to bring Kaepernick back, right? Like if they just said, no quarterbacks for you. So we know that collective action is where it's at, but it's holding that line, resisting being divided. There's so many forces, not just the police, but within our own community, and then people that come and offer us crumbs, and then people that distract us and delay us. And it's really all of that preparation work that we need to continually do, not just now, but in our households every day, how we talk to our children, how we talk to our friends. If we have the opportunity for students, we have a platform to educate people and make sure we're mentoring our students outside of the classroom. And it is constant work, but white supremacy works 24/7. So the only way we win is we work harder. My sister's a defense lawyer, and she says that you have to outwork the crown. Certainly with Abdul, I know I heard from people on Parliament Hill that, they were like, what is going on? And they're like, these people are a machine. They will outwork you. So we can be the machine, and we have to outwork white supremacy. And when we do that, I believe we can win, and we have to hold that, but we have to be focused. So that was a really long answer, and I claimed I was going to be short. So I will be quiet and just say thank you to the other panelists. And sorry for stepping away. So, but everybody is so I'm going to watch this myself to see what I missed. But thank you for hosting this conversation, Dr. Vibe, Black-owned media, and all these amazing panelists, which shows you the plurality of Black views, that we can think in so many different ways, but we're on the same page. We're going in the same direction. We're marching together.
Wonderful, wonderful. This is great. We've gone a little bit over, but it was a good over this time. Definitely a good over. I'll just read a few quick class comments and then we'll close it out. Floydine says there are several excellent Black mental health clinicians. The issue is that the community-based organizations cannot compete with the salaries offered by school boards, hospitals, e.g. a Center for Addiction and Mental Health, etc. Tasha Holiday says there's a discussion on the Facebook page Black Toronto Community Support about Black therapists. Also, Robin says Martin Luther King and was Christian and Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali were Muslim and they helped Black folks. Robin is saying, yes, build leadership at all levels. So quick 30 seconds, each one of the panelists, give where people can contact you. And do you have anything upcoming that our audience, whether live or on the replay, should know about? Ladies first.
Oh, I'm like analog. So you can catch me on Facebook, but my friends list is full. So, you have to catch me after white people delete me. Or you can email me el.jones@m, like Mount svu.ca. I have to say that like my mom. So l.jones@msvu.ca if you want to get in contact with me, or contact Dr. Vibe, and he has my email as well. I don't know. I may be on the current. I may not. You know how it is. Like they ask you, then it changes, then they cancel you. So that may be coming up sometime this week. I don't know. Other than that, right now, you can catch me in these streets. We're having an action Tuesday night after the City Hall budget meeting, and we're going to be showing a screening of Whose Streets, which is a documentary about Ferguson, which we're projecting onto City Hall to make our point. So, we're going to keep going in these streets. So right now, that's really where it's at. You can read my column in the Halifax Examiner, which is online, halifaxexaminer.ca. My intermittent column, it's on any schedule. It's just like when I think of stuff to write. But you can definitely follow that as well. And then thank you, everybody. I'm saying my thank yous, and I'm good.
Thank you. Warren.
I've unmuted myself. Okay. So, so again, thanks for those who listened to this panel and the comments. Really appreciate you. For those who are vulnerable, again, appreciate you. Thanks for your vulnerability. And by no way, no shape, no form, myself, I'll speak on behalf of the panelists. We don't exploit your vulnerability in no way. You can catch me if I'm not, there's been many interviews. I'm very humbled. Please check out the interviews that I've done as a way to, seek knowledge. I'm not the only one that's doing it. Like Al said, she's probably going to be on the current. Support her and watch those things. It's another source of gaining knowledge. But you can connect with me at warrenclarke.ca. That's my website. If you need to, and all my contact information is there, even my cell phone number, which I will be taking down because I don't need people calling me all night, all times of the night. But warrenclarke.ca, so Clarke with an E, .ca, and you can get all the information there. And this Saturday, there will be a Barbershop Talk series. It's a project that I started about 2 years ago. It's called Barbershop Talk, Black Men and Misconceptions. So we're just restarting the conversation and looking at a lot of topics we discussed here, a few more, particularly on how we can continue this march for liberation of Black communities. By acknowledging that we have to work together. So if you can spare time on Saturday at 6:30, between 6:30 and 8:30, to either join the conversation. It's not going to be a panel. It's going to be an open forum for people to speak, because it's important that I learn too. I don't want to be talking down to people. I love when other people are speaking, and that's how we can all learn from each other. So it's going to be open forum. It's going to be positive. It's going to be a safe space. Trust me, I have the control to take people off if I need to, if they try to make it a negative space, but it's going to be a safe space. And Dr. Vibe has the information, and if you seek more information, please email him. He'll email it through his networks as well. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Cesar?
Thank you very much, Dr. Vibe. Always, it's a pleasure. I support you, my brother. Al Jones, congratulations always. I support you, my sister. Brother Warren, I support you. I can be reached regarding website. My name, Cesar Ndema-Moussa. I'm also the president of Roots and Culture Canada. Our CEO, Ketia Peters, does a great job in the community. You can also catch me. I mean, I'm on Twitter and Instagram, but to be honest with you, I'm no good at using them. I am more of a Facebook person. Cesar space Remy, R-I-M-Y, Emery, E-M-E-R-Y. If I can just very, very quickly address 3 points, and I'm sorry for my Francophone people, but you will understand. First and foremost, I'm very disappointed, not really disappointed, but I'm going to tell Black people, do not fall for that viral video of Candace Owens that has gone live, notably insulting the memory of Brother George Floyd regarding his past. Let's never forget that many of white leaders and white heroes in history books were some of the worst looters, pillagers, killers, rapists, slave masters that have ever existed. The second thing I want to say, for those who would have such a hard time understanding what I say regarding religion and will feel offended, allow me to remind you of something. The Egyptian government invited me. I debated on Islam. I studied religion, and at the same time, I teach against Islamophobia. And I was the trainer of the Catholic leadership in the school board regarding racism and how Blacks became Christian. I'm the highest paid consultant, by the way. And the last and least thing I want to say, very importantly, Black people, this is a great opportunity, a historical opportunity within a perfect storm of, pandemia, a horrible president like, Donald Trump, an economic crisis, but it's a perfect opportunity to delve into our identity, to delve into our roots, and to dare, as I said, let's not just say Black Lives Matter or I'm Black and proud. Let us dare to be not just Black of skin, but Black of mind, because as I go into schools, I am telling you, our youth look at us as adults, and the inferiority complexes that too many Black youth have are nothing else but a translation of what they see from Black adults. Let us dare to rise so that Wakanda is not just a fictional movie, but it becomes a reality. Thank you so much to each and everyone, Sophia Jacob, Luc Termonville, Dr. Vibe, everyone who has supported us, notably in the comments and in the community. And yes to allies, but let us have truthful and brave conversations. Thank you.
Thank you, Cesar. Thanks for closing it out. I just want to say a few quick things. I'd like to thank, first and foremost, all our panelists. You have rocked the house over the last 2 Sundays. And don't worry, I'm not letting you go. So you're going to be back. I don't know if it'll be together or individually. I'm not letting you go because the people who are watching over the last 2 weeks want you back for more. So we'll take that offline. Second of all, want to thank everyone who watched us live on the replay. It's appreciated and not taken for granted. Earlier on in the conversation, I mentioned that I thought that Diogène was from France. No, he is from Montreal. So I want to correct that. Then finally, what I want to leave off with is a few things. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get smaller to get stronger. Block assumptions, and then aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. One also, I've been doing some thinking about this subject over the last few weeks, and I'm just going to leave you with this thought, and maybe it's a conversation I want to have with all of you online. My thoughts are there are 5 key areas, not only Black Canadians, African Canadians, Black Americans, African Americans, and Blacks around the world we need to take control of. Schooling our young people. We also have to create our own jobs. We also have to have our own businesses. We also have to have control of our healthcare and our education. If we can get some control, more control in each one of those areas, I think it'll be a better world, not only for Blacks, but for everybody. One last thing, I'd like to thank BIA Media for helping produce this epic conversation. God bless, peace be well, keep the faith, and in Jamaica we say, walk good. Be well, everybody, keep the faith, and stay well and stay strong, and check in with everybody. Bye-bye.